Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 140, B, Tales with TR. And we'll get right to the chase. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest played pro hockey for well over a decade after a successful OHL career in which he played for a unique 6 different teams in 3 years. He's known as one of the toughest players of his era and has thousands of penalty minutes to prove it. These days, he hosts the Sheriff podcast, which continues to gain momentum around the hockey world, and also hosts Ice Wars International. He just started a team mentoring program called Chatting with the Sheriff and is an all-around great guy and member of the hockey fraternity. He is a hell of a host, a marvelous mentor, a fine forward, a fearless fighter, a shifty sheriff, a terrific teacher. He was a team leader lots, and he didn't pick his spots. Pitchers stand on a mound, and he was the toughest sheriff around. He often rides a bike and is magic on the mic. He's got strong wrists and like to throw his fists. Oh, my, he's a hell of a guy. He isn't scared of danger, and his producer is Danny Granger. If I wanted a Ferrari, I'd have to ask to borrow. And please welcome back my pal, Sean the Sheriff McMorrow. How the hell are you, Sean?
Woo! I'm great, Terry. I'm great. I'm just excited to be on Tales with TR, man. I've been wanting to come back for so long, buddy. So thank you for having me back on. I'm fired right up, brother.
No problem. I love having you on, first of all, and I'm glad that we got through the kind of chronological order of your career last time. When was that? Last summer?
You know what, Terry? I think it was about a year ago, brother.
About a year ago. Okay. Yeah, you know what it was? It was at least in the spring, if not the tail end of the winter. So anybody listening that wants to go back, check that out. It was close to episode 100. I don't remember exactly where. I will post the specifics soon. But we went into Sean's career and the ups and downs, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. So right now, today, I do want you to refresh our memories with some things, but we're going to get into some general stuff. How's that?
That sounds incredible, man.
So the first thing I want to know is what you're up to now. I see this mentoring program. Now, we know that you were a tough guy. You played a long time. Your hockey resume speaks for itself. Now you're well-spoken, and not only tough, you were a good player, too. Two-way, 1 year even had 6 goals in 20-odd games. I saw that. It was a different role at the time, and you didn't get a chance to play a lot. But great guy, great player. Now you've branched out into Chatting with McMorrow?
Chatting with the Sheriff is the name of this type of team mentoring.
And what do you do exactly?
All right, man. Well, I'm so glad that you asked me this, Terry, because this is something that I'm very proud of. I have a lot of passion for. And you know what, Terry? Like I'm going through a little bit of a roller coaster time in my life. But normally when people say that, they mean it like as mostly as a bad thing because you're going through ups and downs. But what I mean is that I'm just going through so many different things that I'm doing right now. But what I've decided to start right now is a mentoring program because I'm a few months into the coaching with Seaside, which I'm sure we're going to get into. Yeah. I'm starting to meet all these parents. I'm starting to meet all these young gentlemen and ladies. There's a lot of girls that are playing now.
More than ever. Yeah.
Yeah. And Terry, once you get your foot in the door of the coaching and you're passionate about it like me, you start thinking about things to kind of make it better. And like I started where these kids are starting now. I went through the same things that these kids are going through. And when I look back, there's so many little things that we can help to make things better for the kids now. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take advantage of my blah, blah, blah attitude of always wanting to talk. And I'm going to talk to these kids, make them comfortable and help them with things that could be in the way of them progressing at the ages that they're at now. That was a long answer.
No. I like long answers, by the way. And I'm known to give quite long answers. So I identify, first of all, and to be honest with you, it was probably the most important question I'm going to ask because a lot of obstacles and people, I often do hockey schools, okay? And over the years, I've come to know some kids that around here that need to get away, for example, right? Like it's a different element in Newfoundland. You get to be 14, 15, 16. You got to really, I mean, lots of people leave at 14, as did I, as did our latest Stanley Cup winner, Alex Newhook. You know,
That's awesome.
you've got to leave if you want to play against better competition. There's no way around it, and therefore get better as a player. So that's a bit of adversity that here in Newfoundland we deal with uniquely, in that I've come to realize back here that a lot of the players have to go to a good billet. It's different than living in London and playing in Oshawa. I'm not downplaying having to live away and adjust and play junior and everything, but it's a little different here. And that's what I noticed when I started working with these kids. I almost became, for lack of a better word, a mentor in ways like, you know, because I've lived it and I've experienced it. What kind of obstacles do you see the kids coming at you with?
Okay, so being in Toronto, like you said, every area is different, right? So that's a whole big talking point discussion in itself, leaving the rock, leaving the island.
I think you could write a book on it. Yeah.
In Toronto, though, it's like it's a whole different animal, Terry, because it's like the social scene is big because like Toronto's such a big city. It's a little bit posh. The kids are a little bit different, right, Terry? They're a little bit different. They're going out in social gatherings when they're really young, when they're young teenagers, stuff like that. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because one of the big talking points in my team session, which was my first one this week, was, okay, Friday night, it's your best friend's birthday party. You know that you have a game. You know that you cannot go. You know how much it means to your friend for you to go there. How do you tell your friend as a 12-year-old that you can't go to his birthday party because you have a game against the Don Mills Flyers on Friday night? How do you do that? And not only how do you do it, but how do you feel good about it? How do you not let it affect you during the game? There's many aspects to it. So the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to tell the kids how proud they should be of what they're doing, that they're at the highest level. It's the NHL for kids, being in this AAA league, this GTHL in Toronto. It's insane. When I was on our buddy's show, Spit and Chicklets, I was talking about how expensive it is to be on these teams in Toronto, these AAA teams. Well, now I'm having a talk with these AAA teams where these parents have paid all this money. There's all this pressure. The kids probably feel like have like 5 agents. Their dad's the first agent, mom's the second one, their Uncle Frank is the third one. Everybody has an opinion on how they played on Friday. It's like they're getting interviewed, and they're literally, it's an NHL for kids, this league in Toronto. Lots of pressure. They forget why they're doing it sometimes. I was trying to remind them that the first thing that they're there for is to have fun. The first thing they're there for is to have fun. Now, in order for you to have fun, and in order for you to perform on Friday night, without having these things in your mind about Jimmy's birthday and what does little Betty think that I didn't show up and blah, blah, blah. So what we did, Terry, is I gave my explanation of how I think they should deal with it. I went around the room because I didn't want everyone to talk, but I wanted a handful of them to talk, because when you hear your teammate say something that's been on your mind, but you just weren't sure, now you're hearing your teammate say it and say how he deals with it. That's going to push you in the right direction. You know what I'm saying?
That's powerful. Yeah.
It's very powerful, man. And you know what, Terry? There was a lot more to the session, but like I think I got more out of it than the kids might have. It was therapy for me, man. The kids absolutely loved it. The parents have already asked me back, but I felt like it was therapy for me. And I think that's the coolest thing about actually doing these presentations.
I can see what you mean. Sometimes, when my career ended earlier professionally than I wanted it to, and I found I turned into that kind of spokesman without really asking for it, and it does make you grow up pretty quick in a lot of areas, right? It at least helps you mature mentally, because a lot of people, I guess when they look at a pro hockey player, they don't realize how much adversity there is every day. You're in a roller coaster was a good way to put it, because it's not, and it's not always ups and downs. I had strings of 2 or 3 years where I couldn't have had more fun, but not all roller coasters go up and down. Some sling you sideways, man. And you know what I mean? It's how to deal with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I even mean, like you said, like I remember scoring the winner in Game 7 in overtime in the playoffs. And, in Tri-Cities. It was the biggest goal in the franchise history, I guess you could say at the time, because we'd gone the furthest. We were playing in the Western Final against Kamloops. And, we liked to have a good time. We really did. And we had 4 days now till we played Kamloops. But normally, you had the green light in junior, and then you'd look forward to it and you'd go out. I mean, you probably, I say drunk, probably had 6 beers. But I remember, like, Damon Lankow, I looked over at him and we were like, we're kind of the leaders here. I don't know if we should do this. And, that's a little bit of learning. And if we didn't have that team meeting, like you kind of mirrored what you just explained to me, and we didn't hear it from ourselves, if the coach just came in and said, "No, you bastards, stay in," Bob Laux, God love him, well, we probably wouldn't have listened the same. So that's pretty interesting. Do you plan on doing this? Is this going to be a thing going forward? Are you going to build off it, or was this particular incident a one-off?
Well, I've been preparing it for the last couple months. Like, and when I say preparing, I mean, like, I'm sure you're the same way, Terry. You prepare things in your mind. You might not even write them on paper, but you got something that you've been thinking about every single day, and it builds and it builds and it builds. I did put it to paper a couple weeks ago. And I just thought, you know what, like, I think that this could really help. Like, I think it could help me. It could help my mind. It could help me grow. It could be therapy for me, but I could also give back and really help these kids, man, because I'll tell you, that was a big issue for me, Terry, because my friends did not support me playing hockey when I was younger. And I know that's the case with a couple of the young fellas now. And any help is good help. And it just and the reason why I'm smiling so much, man, is just like seeing the kids, like, they're hanging off every word. I went on the ice with the team for an hour as well after the talk. Yeah. So it was kind of cool because they were, they all wanted to pass me the puck. And, you tell anybody that you have any type of NHL on your resume, people really appreciate that, right? And they want to ask a lot of
especially questions. There, you're in Ground Central Station, man. You're in Ground Zero for hockey, everything hockey in the world. I'm trying to think. I don't know. It's the biggest in Canada. Toronto's the biggest city in Canada with the biggest hockey enrollment. I'm not putting down Edmonton, which is crazy per capita out there, and crazy in a good way. And Calgary and Vancouver. Actually, Vancouver not so much. I mean, it's a big city though with a lot of fans, but. I would think that I didn't think of it till you just said it, but we're a unique problem, I guess, or an adverse, thing, a kid that faces adversity, or a unique obstacle, for lack of a better way to put it, for leaving Newfoundland or being a young player in Newfoundland is leaving. I guess for Toronto, it's all that competition all rolled into one. Like, you've got the enrollment of some provinces, including my own, just in part of Toronto. I mean, so how you must see it outside of your mentoring even, like the McDavids come along. Is there always like a player or players that are talked about from the time they're like 10 years old in Toronto?
Well, pretty much what it will be is it will be the same league that I'm talking about, this GTHL, AAA league. Yeah. There's 12 teams, okay? There used to be 6. Now there's 12
Pee-wee,
teams.
Like Adam right up to midget, or Pee-wee Bantam?
Yeah. But you know what, Terry? They don't even call it that anymore. They don't even call it novice, minor, Adam. They call it like novice is U10. Minor Adam is U11. They call it under. You know what I mean? Like, it's different. They don't have the names for them, but whatever. I guess it's easier for people to know. Okay, all these kids are under 11 years old.
Honestly, right? You know what I think? I think the words peewee and midget offended people. I don't know. I have nothing to go by.
Is that what it? You know what?
I really don't know, that. And I think it's silly, but I don't know. I'm just. I just, in the world we live in, and I'm not, I don't want to get political, nor do I take sides. I hover somewhere in the center around logic and people skills or whatever it might be. I'm just saying I would bet dollars to donuts there's something offensive in there for somebody. But anyway, so be it. So you're saying, and in Toronto, up there they go by the year, don't they? Like under 10, under 11, under 12,
Exactly. That's exactly how it is now. But I'm sorry, because I didn't answer your question yet. Now, so what happens is early on in those age groups, there'll be a couple players that are identified. Like my age group, it was Michael Camilleri, Terry. So he played for the Toronto Red Wings, which was in this GTHL, and he was the best player in our age group. Bradley Boyce was probably a close second. Okay, but
Yeah.
those were the guys, and all the way up, I always thought Camilleri was the best player. He ended up getting an early scholarship to University of Michigan Wolverines, and had a great NHL career, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Toronto does have like they'll just be known as the best player in the age group, and then that will be like the Bedard of the age group. You know what I mean? But hey, Terry, speaking of him, man, I got to get your opinion on Bedard, man. Like,
Sure.
like what we saw with these numbers, twice the amount of points as the second place guy on Team Canada. Yeah. What's going on, man? Is this guy better than everybody or what?
It's funny. This was one of the questions I was going to ask you. I
literally really? Okay, well, I'll answer after you.
Yeah, okay. So, look, I know what the knocks on him are, and that he's smallish, and that the NHL's, I know all that, but I've got nothing so far to tell me that he's not going to be a superstar. Like, I know there's knocks on everybody. I mean, name me any superstar, I can tell you a knock that they had when they were 15 or 16 or 17, including Wayne Gretzky. He's not a good skater. Yeah. He's frail. He's not big. He's not built. Okay, whatever. He'll figure out a way. He'll go behind the net. He'll take. I mean, Gretzky was Gretzky. I'm not saying that, but you would have to think there's a chance for him to be generational. Isn't the word? I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but look at the people who have done what he's done. Now, let's take Connor McDavid. Even 7 years ago, was it in junior? I remember. I mean. You couldn't get much more hyped, but in the actual World Junior, I don't know if you can get any better than what Bedard did. No. So I don't know how to answer that. Do I think he's going to be a superstar? Yes. But then is there another gear ahead of that? And is he going to get there? By all accounts, yes, but I don't want to give this guy his flowers too soon. But here's how I will phrase it. How many points do you think he gets next year? That's one way to look at it.
In the NHL?
In the NHL next year.
In the NHL? I mean, I couldn't see him getting less than 50 points, man.
I can't see him getting less than 50, but I think there's a chance he gets 90. I do, and I might be the only.
Right? Like, we just don't know. We don't know. We really don't know. I mean,
if this transfers, right, it just depends on how quick it takes this guy to
adjust,
adapt to the league. But in junior, I mean, look, I played a few games in junior when I was 15. I was third overall in that league. Behind Wade Redden and Mike McBain. And I was a blue chip right from day one. I went to Junior A and led it in scoring at 14. But when I got into the Western League and played my 3 games as a 15-year-old, I was like, holy fuck, this is the Western League. When I'm 16, I have what I consider a pretty good year, 33 points, 176 minutes. But so what I'm saying is that, and I was on a trajectory quicker than everybody else. Most people my age. He was into the WHL leading his team and scoring as a 15-year-old. And I'm not saying that at any point I was Connor Bedard. I'm just saying it's a lot, you've been to camps. When you get confidence, it changes everything. So he's good enough now, I think, to get 50 points. It depends on where he goes, how he adapts, what you said, team leaders, what leaders he comes in the dressing room with, what kind of rope they give him. If people... it's competition. Some people are pissed off. A young guy comes in, gunslinger, getting more endorsements than they do. I don't know where he ends up. One of the bottom-feeding teams right now. But I think there's a lot of ifs. But I'm going to say he gets, okay, quote me on this, I guess in a year. I'm going to say he gets 75 points.
Wow, that's good, man. That's good. I say, well, I already said at least 50. So I got to stick to that. Man, but that's just the first year though, because maybe he's got to get used to playing with the real men, not just the top 21, right? So
he does. Man, as a first measure, you would say first year, right? And there are Dylan Larkin at 40 something. Like, this guy is supposed to be McDavid Gretzky. Anyway, go ahead.
That's right. Okay, so the thing is though, man, when I was watching him and then seeing all the records being broken. So I was like, okay, so he's breaking the goal record. Now he's breaking the point record. Now he's shattering the record because he got a couple more. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, Terry, this guy's doing better than everybody in history, man.
Yes.
And better than Mario Lemieux, man.
He's doing better than some people at 19.
Right. And so So when I think about it like that, and I think about how the NHL has changed, Terry, and how when we were coming into the league, size really did matter. Now it doesn't, right?
Well,
It
here's where I'll
doesn't
debate
matter
you
how
on this.
tall you are anymore in the
But
NHL,
listen,
does it, Terry?
here's where we'll debate. I thought so for
Okay.
years. So a few years ago, I was doing a bit of research. I can't remember why. It was actually a reporter that was alive, God rest his soul, from here. Robin Short was his name.
Mm-hmm.
And he would say that, and he put out an article in the paper. And the only thing that I couldn't understand, I called him and we talked about it. I don't know if we
Okay.
ever solved the problem, but when I played, I remember opening the paper and saying the average size of an NHL player, and I was right on it. 6'1", I'm almost 6'1". I'm not quite 6'1", 195, and that's what I was. And I said, wow, I'm exactly average. And I made a joke because most of my opponents at that time were bigger and working out for it and everything. So I distinctly remember that. Then I looked recently, and it's at least an inch bigger and I think 5 pounds heavier. So
Really?
if size doesn't matter, right? If size doesn't matter, I mean, in hockey, we'll say, because everybody knows Ted Hitchcock got a 10-inch cock. But anyway, so it's if size doesn't matter, how did the average? It doesn't have to be you're as physical, but still physics is there. If I go to get around Hedman, he's a lot bigger than John Slaney was. And so he'll probably stop. Like it's always been there. I think of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Remember, Corey Cross was 6'6", but he wasn't physical. He was just technically, mathematically,
long reach.
The rink is got boundaries on it, right? There's boards, and I can just take you in the corner and throw you in the. Cole Caulfield would still be an exception, but now. But maybe not. Like they don't have to be as physical. I can think Fleury used to be there, Steve Sullivan. I can think of lots of small players, and there's no more now than there were. So then explain your side of the argument.
Okay, well, the one good thing about, being in the media, doing these podcasts and everything else is that you can learn a lot in a show, Mr. Ryan. And I'm learning a lot right now. I'm learning a lot. I'm taking it in. I'm being humble because I had no idea that the average size had gotten bigger. Now I'm hearing this, and then I heard what you said afterwards. And you know what, Terry? I was wrong, buddy. I was wrong because your points all line up. And what I'm wrong about is that size doesn't matter anymore, because if it didn't matter, then we would have seen it go down and seen all these seen 10 more Steve Sullivans.
I don't think it matters in the same way. I think you're right there. Right?
Okay. Fair enough.
I don't think, like, some players are just real soft that small and wouldn't be able to play back in a ferocious league. But I think, to me, just think of the last teams that won the cup. I don't know. Think of Tampa. Think how big their D are.
I know.
Right?
Yes.
It matters more than ever on defense. Think of all the best defense in the league. I can't think of anybody like Cole Caulfield. Or I just used him for an example because I've been watching.
It's a great example, though, because he is
right?
a little buzzer.
Or Paul Coffey, kind of.
Yeah,
John
but
Slaney,
even Marner, isn't he a little guy?
Yeah, Marner. I'm talking
5'10".
Yeah, so I think it's just to succeed, they would have had to have a little bit of more spunk back, but like guys like now, like I think there'll always be Gallaghers. They some people, it doesn't matter for Gallagher, but they got to have an extra bit of pep to them, because there's guys you're going out against that are 6'4", and not everybody if the average size in the show was 7 feet, I don't know that I would have been as if I would have tried hard, but I'm just trying to think of them. I'm trying to think of the most sensible way I can put it. If the average size got bigger, I'm looking right now. So 198.9. So it didn't go up a lot, but it went up 3 pounds, 4 pounds, right?
Yeah.
And height being just over 6'1". So it's around the same as it was. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
If the same amount of players are in the league, and you do the division and the ratio, and it comes down that the average is in fact bigger, then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I'm grateful to learn this. And I just want to add to that. I guess what it is, Terry, is you used to hear so much, so you'd hear it so often, I should say, 10, 15, 20 years ago. you can't teach size. You can't teach size. And like, I would hear that a lot growing up. And I would always be so confident. All these people, they liked me because I was big and because of blah, 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 blah. But it was always one thing because I was big. I just don't hear that anymore. But maybe it's just because they're saying other things. You know what I'm saying?
I think there's a bit of what's the word? It's a bit of an illusion, because I think size still matters, but I'm talking just from the point of view of keeping the puck out of the net. And I guess in a place like, okay, Tage Thompson. Now his reach must help. If Tage Thompson was 5'8", he'd still be a great player. Would he be the NHL player? Would he be in the NHL? I don't know. I mean, these are hypotheticals that you can, but what I can say is that reach really fucking helps him. And he's Tage Thompson with those moves a lot of the time because he's got an extra foot on some players. You know, you can't tell me it didn't, not that you are, but Zdeno Chara, you know, he played into his 40s. He could change his game easier because he's so fucking tall, right? He could lose a step and still, at some point, it's got to bounce off the pad and go in the net, or go in the corner. And you're still Johnny Gaudreau, and I'm still fucking Zdeno Chara, and you can't skate your way out of this. There's the puck. Here's me. Boom. You're held up against the wall. That's what I'm talking. I think when it comes down to like stick lengths and, you know, analytics and stuff, it still matters, but
well, imagine a forward beating Zdeno wide, Terry, and he hasn't beat wide. And you know what happens once you're a defenseman and you've been beat by one step, you're doing that slide, you know, stick swoosh. And I bet you would get it every time.
Yeah, just think about when you had the puck. Right? Think about your play. You've got the puck on your stick, you're forward, you're coming up, and I don't know, you've got it at the red line, and you look up. And I don't know, you might see Frankie Francis Bouillon used to play on the Habs, a really blocky guy. He was strong, really strong, but he was 5'10". Now, on the other side, I saw Peter Popovich, who's 6'7", right? I just automatically, in my head, I just go towards Frankie. I wouldn't really think about it, right? Popovich wasn't even tough. He was just 6'7", and it was hard to get around him. Right?
You know, man, Corey Cross, that was such a good example, man. That guy was probably the best positional big defenseman.
Yeah, he was.
Used his stick the best. He probably has the highest percentage of poke checks, like successful poke checks.
Totally.
You know?
He was so underrated that way.
I miss watching that guy.
he came, I think, from University of Alberta. I remember he was at least out there practicing when I was in the early 90s. I was with Tri-City. Most of my teammates were from Edmonton, so I went there a lot. I know he was on the ice. I guess it's a quick Google search, but I believe he came from there. But same thing, a lot of people always said he would fail, but he was just really good at that, and he didn't pinch. He just stayed back. I don't know how many goals he got, not a lot. He was on the ice a lot, and he just it was just math, man. It was just, and I played against him a couple times, and I'm telling you, you looked up and you didn't see much daylight with him out there.
Yeah, man. I liked him. I was a big fan of Corey Cross. He was awesome.
Me too. Speaking of leaders, name me the best is a strong phrasing, but name me some good leaders that you played with.
Well, I would have to go to my first year pro. I actually played. Did you remember Doug Huda?
Yeah, of course. I fought him. Anaheim. He was one of the. There's a fight out there somewhere. You just spurred my memory. And he was a gamer. It was a terrible fight. It was in Montreal. He didn't want to go. He was an older guy, and I just got called up. And we went to the penalty box and had a fucking great conversation. Never talked to him again. Go ahead.
Jason Botterill, I also got to play with my first couple of years. He was like the sergeant for Team Canada when he was at that age. He didn't have the best NHL career, like numbers wise, but man, was he ever a good leader, man. I played with Tim Brent in the Rockford Ice Hogs. He was a really, really good leader. He was actually our captain. He got called up to Chicago for a little bit. He wasn't even that well skilled. I think they just called him up because he was such a big leader, to be honest.
That's great.
You know what? I'm just trying to think over the years. Like, I had a really good captain, because when I think of the leaders, I'm thinking of my captains, of course. And Colin Shields, who's a British player that was the captain of the Belfast Giants when I was in Belfast. He was a heck of a leader as well, man.
People don't realize that, so we can say it's easy to assume when you watch the NHL because we're given so much information. And I often said to people, I'm like, and I had some great, Vinny Damphus was fucking fantastic. But I say to people, I'm like, of all you, I've been asked that question. I'm like, a lot of them are in the minors because you don't have as much to work with. Like, everybody's not rich in the minors. Some people are down there making ends meet and they got a wife and 2 kids and they don't want to get traded, but they know they might. And there's a lot going on in the minors to unpack. And it's not as easy to be a great leader or captain because you're not given as many of the resources a lot of the time. And it's often somebody that just likes to, I was going to say a booze with the boys, but I know at least a couple that didn't drink, but we'd go over there for coffee in the morning. There was always this communication and almost that by the time I got to the rink, Zach Boyer, for example, by the time I got to the rink, I'd have to be on the same level mentally with Zach. It was almost like I looked to him for approval. I don't remember ever having any big conversations with him, just like it was nice to have Zach on my side. And those kind of guys are, I think, to me, underappreciated in the minors.
Oh yeah, and then you got to add on how stressful some of the travel is, Terry, and the fact that 90% of the games in the AHL are between Thursday and Sunday, and they're usually 3-3s, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So man.
It takes a lot more leadership to get the boys going when you're playing 3 games in 2.5 nights, man. So
I can remember some of the gloomiest times, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, pulling into like Worcester, and it'd be foggy in November, just getting cold. And you have we got in so many fights. I don't mean you and I personally together, but I know what it felt like. I know what your hands. I wasn't as tough in that category, but I had 34 in my first year in the A, and I remember just my hands. People ask me, "Do your hands hurt?" I'm like, "Dude, my fucking hands hurt." My hands started hurting in September. Now it's May, and they're just coming around because I haven't played in 3 weeks. Of course, my hands hurt. I've had 34 fights in 70-something games, man, and I'm punching people in the face and in the helmet and in the teeth. And to come in and have those 3-3, not even all about fighting. That was just, but always hurt. And any player that plays hard, by the time you're in January and February, unlike other sports, I mean, there might be nagging injuries, but pretty much everybody in the room is hurt, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Terry, what about the Sunday game being in the afternoon always? Yeah. It wasn't at night. It would be the third game is like, hey, your way, man.
I tell you, what a great feeling if you've just done okay in those 3 games, like going into the third period, knowing it's almost over, and then like 10 minutes left, and whatever team you're playing at the same fucking schedule, and for the first time all weekend, people start joking, and everybody knows that another few days of freedom after this, right? It's just like, is there anything you would have done differently? Now, I think you had a great career, so people that might judge hockey, which is a lot of parents. We could get into that another episode, just on like making the NHL. Look, you went to camps. You were one of the toughest around in a tough era. So do you have any regrets about your retirement or any choices you made during the game?
Definitely. When I was so I was under contract with the Sabres for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
You're drafted, you're property for 2, and then they sign you to your entry level. That's mostly the case for most of us. So in those 4 years, Terry, there was an opportunity. There was a really big opportunity one year for me to make the team, and that was my second year. Okay. Yeah. So my first year pro, man, I led I like see how you did so well your first year in the A. I was the exact same, Terry. Okay. So I had 41.
I remember hearing that. Yeah.
41 fights in 64 games.
Fuck.
I had 1 assist. Okay. As a fourth line right winger, 20-year-old in the AHL. Now, because I was doing well, winning the majority of my fights, being my, team guy, whatever, I won the Man of the Year award that year as well. And because I was doing well in the eyes of the brass, what they did was they rewarded me and gave me a call up at the end of the season. It was in March 22nd, my first year pro. So I get called up over Andrew Peters, who's 2 years older than me, second round pick, who's ahead of me in the depth chart. He didn't get called up that year. I did. So now, if I had my shit on straight at that time, I would have got a personal trainer. I would have hit the gym harder than I'd ever had. I would have went to every single skate I possibly could have thought of, kept healthy, and in September, I would have made the team. Obviously, I would have had to perform in training camp. Obviously, I would have done well in those preseason games, but it was either me or Andrew. Andrew was supposed to be the one, but I was ahead of him after my first year. And that training camp, Terry, I didn't come in out of shape, but I didn't come in good enough shape.
Yeah.
And Andrew made the team. I went to back to Rochester, and that's one of my biggest regrets was that summer, that I did not go hard enough, man.
That's interesting, but for what you're doing now, and to be able to be honest about that and face it, and again, you went down and had another season of pro. It wasn't all fucking rotten apples, but that's good, and then that's again more knowledge gained and advice that you can pass on.
NBA fans, it's time to bring the hoops action to the palm of your hand with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This week, new customers can bet $5 and win $200 in free bets instantly. Plus, for a limited time, all new and existing customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app today, opt in, and place a same-game parlay on any NBA game. And if it doesn't hit, you'll get a free bet back. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app now and sign up with the code THPN. New customers can bet $5 on the NBA and get $200 in free bets instantly. Again, that's code THPN, as in the Hockey Podcast Network, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void in Ohio. See show notes for details. This time of year, everyone's talking about making big changes, which is all well and good, but most of the time, pretty unrealistic. You've probably found that the smallest changes to your routine can actually make the biggest impact. In the same way, you don't have to break the bank to make a big deal purchase. Even the smallest things can be part of a big change if it's something you use every day, just like Raycon earbuds. Raycon is premium audio at the perfect price point, so you can build great habits without breaking the bank. Whether you're looking for a pair of everyday earbuds, low latency gaming headphones, or a speaker with a battery that will last all night at your next party, Raycon's got you covered. And yep, Raycon start at half the price of other premium audio brands. That means you don't have to choose between products. You can get one of each, or a pair and a spare, and still pay less than you would with some of the other guys. Even if you know you'll love your Raycons, Raycon wants to make sure you feel great about your purchase. They offer buy now, pay later options, and every purchase has an easy and free return guarantee. Ready to buy something small with a big impact? Go to buyraycon.com/THPN today to get 15% off your Raycon order. Again, that's buyraycon.com/THPN to score 15% off. buyraycon.com/THPN.
Which sport are you closest to outside of hockey?
Well, it would the big black guy is going to say basketball. Well, it is basketball, and I'll tell you why. Because my youngest brother, Liam McMorrow, this guy grew 8 inches when he was in grade 12. He was a hockey player, just like me and my brother Pat. We were all hockey players. Liam, 8 inches, growth spurt, becomes a basketball player, went on and got a D1 scholarship, and ended up playing 10 years professional. So I lived through him with basketball. Yeah. I learned so much, Terry, about the rules, asking him this, asking him that. So because I had a brother that got a D1 scholarship and played professionally, I'm very close to that sport.
Interesting. Where did he go professionally?
Buddy, this guy got a D1 professionally. Okay, so he played in the G League, which is like the AHL for them.
Oh yeah.
2 years in the G League, couple NBA summer leagues in Vegas. I don't know if you've ever you know, and then he went to the CBA, which is in China. That's the second highest paying league other than the NBA.
Yeah.
Right. He did like a tour of Asia. He went to China. He went to Taiwan. His favorite place that he went to was the Philippines. The Philippines, they treat you like a king. You have a driver, you have a maid, you play your basketball, and you're living like you're Alexander the Eighth.
Interesting. I knew there was there's a player from around here, Carl English, and he was projected to go in the second round. He didn't, but he went over to Spain and played for a number of years. Came back here, played in the CBA, played in the G League. He played in it's similar. So I know about the route. Put it this way, I'm aware that there's a lot of opportunity in basketball outside the NBA. It's not as advertised in our worlds as the AHL is or the East Coast League, but there's all kinds of opportunity all over the world. That's interesting. This question came in last time, and it's just real random, but your board game, do you have a board game that you like playing?
I was a lot more into it, man, when I was younger. I was a Monopoly guy. Snakes and Ladders. Snakes and Ladders was.
You're close to your mom. You guys don't. You and your mom don't play crib or anything, do you?
No, Terry, we don't. You know what? Me and my mom. I know she's not either. We're not the biggest cards guys. I wasn't a big card guy on the bus. I know you probably were, but for some reason, I would rather like listen to music, read, or just talk. Because I never talk, so. You know, but I don't know. I'm not a big card guy, but Monopoly, Snakes and Ladders, games like that would definitely be frequented around the household.
I see. Now I have a question that I heard them. I forget. It might have been Chicklets or it was Overdrive. I listen to a lot of podcasts, including yours. But the other night, did you see when the Blackhawks were playing the Oilers and the Oilers put in the EBUG at the end of the game? Are you aware?
The Oilers put in
the Oilers were playing the other night. They were beating the Blackhawks 7-3.
Yes.
Okay. And with about 2 minutes left, because their backup was injured. So Campbell's in, Skinner's injured, so they had an EBUG on the bench. So with about 2 minutes left, they put the EBUG. Emergency backup goalie, for people that don't know, aren't usually on NHL contract. They get paid like $500. David Ayers is the best example I can think of in recent history. Scott Foster played with Chicago. Now, but those were emergency situations. This guy was on the bench. The Oilers were winning 7-3. McDavid apparently came with the idea, and for 2 minutes, the Oilers put in an EBUG that didn't really have to go in. So at first, I had to see his name. Hold on. 1 sec.
I did see that.
Some people, now I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, okay, God, where's his name?
I thought the story was that he was on the bench. I didn't even know that he got into the game, Terry.
Yeah, he was on the bench. University of Alberta goalie Matt Berlin fulfilling his childhood dream and becoming the 5th emergency goaltender to play minutes in an NHL game. The thing is, between you and I, the first 4, it was all actual emergency. The 2 goalies got hurt and they had to go in. And I love that this happens in hockey, just no other sport. And I know at some point it's going to be a pie in the face here because it's probably going to go. But it really is a nice story when it happens. And I just looked at it and I was like, that's great. You know, this guy's going to have 1 game played on his NHL. And he plays for the University of Alberta now, so it's not kind of as outlandish as putting in some 60-year-old plumber. Like, you know, this guy played in the Dub, I guess, a few years ago, wherever he came from. He's a University of Alberta's goalie now, so it's not outlandish. He can stop a puck. He's 24, 25 years old. But I hadn't thought of it from the other perspective. Now, Chicago are looking at that going, what the fuck? Now, in our era, I think it might have gone up because, I mean, depending on what way you take it, I'm looking at it as a fan going, oh, it's great he got in. But can you imagine if you're on the road and it's 7-3 and like some team puts in their trainer in the net just so he can say he played a game? And it's almost laughing at the other team. Like, what do you think? I find it a real hard fence. It's a hard line to tread there.
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think that if it happened in our era and I was in the lineup, I definitely would have been sent to go get somebody.
Definitely, that's the case, isn't it?
To send some retribution for that decision. I think it's extremely disrespectful, Terry.
Yeah,
I think it's extremely disrespectful what they did to the Blackhawks. If I was the Blackhawks, I'd be very upset.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's too bad for the Blackhawks that it wasn't in the era when they had Probert and Simpson and all these maniacs.
That was my last shift, man, against Jansen's Probert Russell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? Like, here's what I don't understand. And I think I kind of do.
Van den Busch?
Well, no, we have Van den Busch. I mean, they were. But this is the thing. In that era, I guess there was more fun. I mean, it still happens. There's big guys. They're fighting. Like, it's funny that we say, traditionalists go, well, no fighting anymore in hockey. And last year there was like 207. Like, there's still, compared to every other sport, it's, you can drop your gloves and bare knuckle a guy. That's great. So, and hopefully, you can do it. I know the game evolves, but for the most part, there's not, for how many fights there really aren't as many injuries, right? So, anyway. I'm dissecting it too much. But I left home as a pure scorer. There was nobody that ever expected anything. Now, I played in the junior league. It toughened me up a bit. And then when I got to realize that I got more room out there, room meant a lot. I wasn't going to go around anybody end to end. I had good instincts, but if you give me an extra second in front of the net, I'll tip 20 in. And by the end of every year, I would score. They weren't Damon Lankow type goals who played on my line, but they went in because I knew how to get around. I knew how to carry myself. I knew how to get respect. And for me, fighting was often a choice, but if I saw someone do that, I would be upset. If someone cheered and went by my bench, I don't care what era it's in, I'm going to fucking lose my mind. So, and I just thought that was human nature. So now I see more and more, like, I don't know, a month ago, Tkachuk went back, Matthew Tkachuk, he was playing with Florida, he went back in Edmonton. It was subtle, but it was the first goal, and, he went and rubbed it in Edmonton's face, whatever it was, I'm from Calgary, I signed big money, whatever it was, and I like Tkachuk. But I'm going, if I'm on another team and he comes in into my building after, the focus is on him and he's laughing and he's celebrating in my building, I'm going to go out. I don't care what era it is. Now, sorry, this is a long question, and I'm going to give you what I think is the answer. I've asked this for years, and I've wondered, because I'm like, human evolution didn't change. Like, someone must be pissed off. But again, people like you and me came from a different era, and you really had to work for it, and not everybody was an elitist going in. Hockey costs so much more nowadays that I don't know if the heart is gone out of the people that are 16, 17, 18 that end up, because they've gone to so many camps and been told they're so good, and it's so individual, and do this for the gram instead of this for your teammate. And by the time they're 18, 19, maybe it's just a different kind of people that are in that situation. The people that would react like me are home, not playing on the AAAs because they don't have that money, and they're still passionate. They're passionate in their midget AAA league, whereas their friend is playing major junior. Maybe that, I don't know. It's just funny to me. More people don't fucking react. You can't hit the goalie, for example.
I'm getting pins and needles hearing you say it, buddy, because I get confused about this stuff all the time too. But I kind of relate it to the fact that I think it's a cultural thing, Terry. I think that our culture's really changed, man. Yeah. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Like, usually when I'm tying this in to the fighting aspect, I'm saying that, 20 years ago, Terry, if one of our buddies smacked this kid to discipline him, wasn't really that big of a deal, right? But now, if one of our buddies smacks his kid, CIS is going to get called, and he possibly could spend a night in jail, right? So that's how our world is. It's a little bit more softer. I'm not for hitting kids or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, in general, life has gotten softer, buddy.
I know what you're saying.
COVID, super soft, and
like young generation. In today's world, maybe someone would have cut me off when I was 14 or 15 from hitting that extra bit or dropping my gloves in the first place. And then by the time I'm 20, it's kind of bred out of my brain. Whereas maybe, I know what you're saying. The way that you're raised and whatever culture, it's in you, right?
But like the other thing is we have the 24-hour like sports news cycle now. So can you imagine, like, remember all like the kind of like the mini brawls and like there was like, if you were playing a team that was in your division, there's going to be at least one time during the game where there's almost a brawl. Like it's like a 5-on-5. Not everyone's really fighting. There's one going really good. The other ones are just kind of jabbing, but you know what I mean? But nowadays we wouldn't be able to keep showing that every 10 minutes, a hockey fight every 10 minutes. It's too much violence. Our culture's changed, man. We're pretty soft now, like in general, compared to where we were.
Like to me, it's actionary versus reactionary. Now a lot of things, you assume so much going in. But if I would love to see some guy that I wanted to cream out there and he celebrate a goal or something, or just give me a reason. But I can.
But Terry, just to add
I know what you're saying.
I'm so on your side with this of what I would do. If Tkachuk laughed at my bench and it was in my building and it's where he played last year and that whole storyline, not only would I be expected to go and jump and get him, but if I didn't like stand up and start screaming my head off, "You're dead, Tkachuk! I'm gonna get you!" Like if I didn't do that, my teammates would probably be disappointed.
Yes.
They'd be like, "Mac, how come you didn't, Mac,
totally.
Say something." Like, you know what I mean?
That's
because they
what
want to.
I mean. And if you didn't, it would be
a problem.
Subconscious nod to the other team that you're being walked over. Hey, they're fucking tough guys aren't even doing fuck all.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Terry Ryan's not doing anything. He doesn't give a shit. Let's go in and run fucking Doug Strobel or whoever. You know what I mean? Like, of course we're going to. And yeah, you're right. Which, you see, it's hard to be subjective while I'm looking at it, because there's a lot of different, and there's more people now. There's more cultures, for lack of a better. There's more people playing the game around the world, and there's more immigrants in Canada playing that got into it. I'm sure. I often wonder what it must be like if you come from, I don't know, India, and you're over in, your parents were immigrants and now you were born in Canada and they want you to get into the local sport and you're pretty good. You're like 8 or 9 years old and you're out there dangling. They go, "Oh, this is cool." And then you go to an NHL game and someone fucking beats the piss out of somebody with bare knuckle fists. It must be. I mean, I think there's cause for comedy in there. Hopefully it gets written into Shoresy.
No, there definitely is. And like, I know that you're just about to get into something, but just because you mentioned that, I have to bring this up. Now, Seaside Hockey, what I coach, this program is kind of similar to what you just said. Seaside Hockey is a program that has had a grant from the Canadian government. Okay, Terry? So if you want to play hockey, or if you're interested in playing hockey and you sign up with Seaside, where I'm coaching, you get free equipment, head to toe, Terry. You get free skates, Terry. You get sticks. You get everything that you need. We have a learn to skate program for a couple weeks. Then we give them their stick. Now they're wheeling around with a stick. Then we allow them to use pucks. Then we separate ones that are learning fast from the slower learners. We make all-star teams. We have age groups from 6 years old all the way to 14. We have an all-star team for each age group that's now playing against single A and double A teams. None of these kids played hockey in September and had zero equipment. Now they're flying around the ice, Terry, bar down. That's what I'm witnessing right now. So now, what you just said about the pro hockey game.
Yeah.
About the pro hockey game. As an organization, we went to the Toronto Marlies game right after Christmas. So this was the first game that a lot of these kids had ever seen live.
Wow.
There was a couple scraps. I was so happy to see an AHL scrap, Terry. We were right in there, and I'm like, "Oh, here we go. I think what's going to happen?" And then boom, it started happening, and it was unreal. And I looked at the kids. Some of them were really confused. Some of them were cheering. But that was
I can see how I guess. Yeah, right. You see it. That's the sport. We were young at one point too. Now that's wild, but I'm glad that's really interesting. And hockey is really touching a lot of places on Earth. I'm including the United States. When I was real young, I didn't expect it to be as popular. You can thank Wayne Gretzky for a lot of it, but I mean, the globalization of it after that, the internet and players like yourself who are promoting it, it might be of a different look than everybody else. Willie O'Ree, shout out. He was the first, right? Willie O'Ree? First
Willie
black
O'Ree
player,
was
am I
the
wrong?
first. No, Willie O'Ree was the first. It should have been Herb Carnegie, but it was Willie O'Ree.
Yeah. There you go.
Carson, then Bill Riley. Those are the top three.
Interesting. Bill Riley is a former St. John's Cap over here in Newfoundland.
Is he?
Yeah, he
man,
played senior hockey over here for years. Then he went to Amherst and always kept a few Newfoundlanders on the team. He was very good to St. John's and by extension Newfoundland. Who is one of the better? If a defensive forward comes into your mind, who's the best defensive forward you already ever played against? Same thing with best leader. People ask me these questions, and those two caught me off guard because a lot of people were good leaders, and defensive. Yeah. God, it's like who's good at like some people are great at face-offs, and you put them out there in the defensive end with minute, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're any better defensively than the next player. And then some players that are offensive, the obvious end of the spectrum being Bergeron, but.
I got mine. It's actually a Montreal Canadiens Hamilton Bulldogs guy. So you may know who it is. I don't know how he played in the NHL, man, but in the AHL, this guy was definitely the best defensive forward. He won all the faceoffs, like hands down. Remember Thomas Plekanec?
Yeah. He's still playing at 40-odd years old.
No way. Where is he playing?
I watched the highlight the other day, man.
Where's he playing?
To Jagger. They're playing in Jagger's hometown. Kladno? In the Czech Republic. Yeah, man.
I hated Plekanec, Terry.
Yeah, he was...
to kill that kid.
Yeah, but he was good at what he did, wasn't he?
He was so good. But he would chirp. He would chirp, man. And I just wanted to kill him. I never got on the ice with him because he was like a top forward.
Last question, I got to take off, and we've been here an hour, and, I like your take on everything, but much like Ken Reed, I'd like to have you back maybe every couple months maybe to be a regular guest. I love your take on things, and you're doing a lot. I
appreciate that, Terry.
It seems to me, and you're an inspiration for a lot of people. I hope you know that, right?
I appreciate that, buddy.
I'm not just saying the black movement movement. I'm not saying anything to do with Black Lives Matter or growing the game culturally with the black community. What I'm saying is that a lot of people look up a lot of people that are podcast. You're a real go-getter when it comes to podcasting. You're carving your own way. You really work hard. You got great people around you. You're choosing to mentor. Some people choose to go in and be a mechanic. Nothing wrong with that. You're choosing to mentor kids and everything. So the work that you're doing is positive vibes all around. It's good for karma. So I really enjoy the success that you're continuing to have. And for that reason, I want to have you back. My last question to you, buddy. What do you think can be done to improve, at least in my mind, the NHL All-Star Game? I think I get it that kids like it, but it's too corny for me now, and I don't even understand what's happening when the game actually happens. For me, maybe, I don't know, maybe go back to having... I enjoyed watching Gretzky play Lemieux and company and Yzerman and Bourque, and maybe 5-on-5 like it was. Maybe make the MVP of the game for each team, maybe an award, maybe $1 million. I really don't know, but there has to be a way that it can't be as corny. That's just my opinion. Maybe you love the game. If not, what do you think can be done to improve it?
Okay, so I think that the NHL is trying to be kind of like the NBA All-Star Game, with all these little festivities and stuff. I think they need to make it more plain, Terry. I think like back in the day, like you said, Gretzky against Lemieux, 5-on-5, the MVP of the All-Star Game. It was very simple, man. I don't even know if they had the shootout competition then.
I don't know. This is the thing.
You know what they did? Because I remember Patrick Waugh being in, you know what I mean? So
Ally Afraidy got the hardest shot. I don't mind that.
Shot. I think they should just stick to the hardest shot, shootout competition, and just the plain out All-Star Game.
Yeah,
you gotta rub guys out too, man. You can't just just be out there. You got to rub
Dude, I
guys out.
watched like in the mid fucking 80s Campbell Conference versus the Whales, and first of all, I don't know at what point people said we got to make this All-Star game better, because it's exactly what I want to see. I think Gretzky had 4 that game. It's on YouTube somewhere is where I found it. But and there are people rubbing out. There was a couple guys like blocking shots, not like leaping down with their neck, but shot coming in, kick it away with your pad. Like they were playing rather responsibly for a game like that. I think Gretzky won a car, something else, and I don't know.
Those were the glory days.
Yeah. And then I remember, like, maybe it was 2 or 3 years later, Ally Afraidy came out with the Scullin and took I get the hardest shot. Bork went 4 for 4 in these clips. I didn't know anybody did that. He went 4 for 4. So I get some elements of that, but it's starting, like now I think they play like 6 teams, 3-on-3, divided up. I mean, at some point they're going to have 2 pucks out there, I'm sure. They're doing that, and then they're having guys wearing capes and doing all the stuff that the NBA does, and that's not hockey, man. That's, you know what I mean? And I don't know at what point we needed that. Like, why? Why do I need a cape? And hence show me Ovechkin on a breakaway. I'm happy. That's the best fucking scorer of his era, arguably ever, taking a breakaway against an NHL goalie. It's an all-star, so it's going to be one of the best. Why? Yeah. Why do I need to enhance that with a fucking dancing bear or a fucking fiery hula hoop or a cape? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
It's very true, buddy. Very true. You get fired up just like me, Terry.
Yeah, I do. And at least I think this is the thing. I know sometimes I get too passionate about my points of view, but if we weren't like that, I don't think we would have gotten there in the first place. Like,
true, but I don't think you get too fired up, buddy. I love it. I love it, man.
I appreciate it, because you're looking in the mirror when I'm doing it, pretty much. But yeah, you know what I mean. I think that passion led to us having a pro hockey career. Whether it was taught to me or not, whether it's nature or nurture, I'll never know. But I'm sure glad that my era produced players like you and I. I'll leave it at that.
Well, that's awesome, buddy.
Thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it. And do you have anything else to plug or anything on the way out?
No, just anybody that wants to support Seaside Hockey, guys, please look it up, what we're doing. We're looking for new players all the time. We're looking to grow the game. Again, Terry, what we were talking about with the team mentoring, if there's any teams in the Toronto area that are looking for team mentoring, definitely reach out to me, and I would love to do that. I just want to make things better for the players, and the future is bright, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that sounds great. And side note, I'll be up there in just over a month. We're doing Shoresy season 2, and I'd love to join you at the bottom of a line for
man, I would absolutely be honored.
That's where he does his podcast, folks. The podcast name again is the Sheriff Podcast, correct?
That's right. The Sheriff Podcast on all platforms. We also have a YouTube channel, the Sheriff Podcast. And thanks a lot, Terry. I appreciate that.
No sweat, folks. If you're downtown St. John's and you want to go for a beer, go to Trinity Pub, the Bull and Barrel, Rob Roy Confusion, TJ's Pub, or Greensleeves Pub. If you're going to have a bite to eat, why not try Merchant Tavern, Blue on Water, or Wedgwood Cafe? If you want to make a change with your body and mind, go to Ryan Power Conditioning on Rope Walk Lane. Strength, balance, body, and mind. And of course, Mr. Lube has 2 locations here in St. John's on Torbay Road and Kenmount Road. Live, laugh, lube. Pitbull Pain Relief. Pitbull Pain Relief sticks are second to none. I highly recommend them for any aches and pains that you might have. And of course, True Hockey. Take what's yours. Folks, this has been 140B with my guest, Sean the Sheriff McMorrow. See you all soon. I'll catch you on the rebound.